What's not to love about dinner in the diner? But dining cars didn't exist in the early days of U.S. railroading. Overnight train journeys were not exactly luxurious. They were sometimes even dangerous. Today, they are safe and comfortable. However, I don't think too many American sleeping car passengers are throwing around the word luxury. But in between was the golden age of rail travel, with railroads competing for customers, luring them in with some of the most extravagant and high-end accommodations ever seen on rails. And surely the showpiece of any overnight train was the dining car. This was the most visible onboard service that a railroad offered, and no expense was spared to impress the traveling public. One could expect fine foods and lavishly decorated interiors, all while speeding towards their destinations. Let's dig into the fascinating evolution of the dining car, from makeshift setups to opulent rolling restaurants, exploring how we can still enjoy this unique experience today, and wonder about what American dining cars could look like in the future. I've been riding long-distance trains in the US as long as I can remember. And if you have too, then I'd be willing to bet one of your fondest memories is dinner in the diner as well. What could be better than enjoying a gourmet meal while the scenery effortlessly slips past the large windows? It makes this enjoyable way to travel even better. More than just a fun way to break up a long journey, the dining car provides one of the most unique experiences on any form of transportation in the world. The dining car is and was the centerpiece of the train, providing an opportunity for a railroad to showcase their style and service in the most dramatic way. The diner was meant to make passengers feel like royalty, and companies took great pride in their luxurious and sometimes exotic offerings. Before dining cars became a staple on overnight trains, passengers would eat meals in the station or even in stops along the way, in places like the famous Harvey houses. These establishments were strategically located at intervals of approximately 100 miles along railroads like the Santa Fe, ensuring that passengers could enjoy a hot, delicious meal and a respite from their journey. The first known instance of a meal being served on a moving train was on the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad in 1853. Boards were used to create tables and benches down the full length of the car, and passengers were served meals that were prepared by caterers prior to the journey. The first of what we might call dining cars on a train made their appearance on the Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Baltimore Railroad, which was later consolidated into the Pennsylvania. These cars were simply coaches refitted with an eating bar and a steam box, and the food was still not prepared on board, but at the station, and it was loaded just prior to the train's departure. Although debatable, the first car with meals cooked on board is credited to George Pullman. In 1867, Pullman created the first so-called hotel car, which was a combination sleeper and food service car. One end contained a kitchen and tables where the meals could be served. A chef prepared the meals, and the sleeping car porter doubled as the server. The first of these cars was called the President, and it made its debut on a highly publicized excursion between Chicago and New York. The success of this exhibition prompted the immediate creation of two more cars for Michigan Central, which became part of the New York Central. Pullman's next foray into food service cars would see the creation of the first so-called restaurant car, which would be the first created exclusively for dining. The first of these, named the Delmonico after the famous New York restaurant, ran between Chicago and St. Louis in 1868. Despite the challenges of cooking in a moving kitchen, chefs rose to the occasion, showcasing their culinary prowess. The advent of refrigeration technology further expanded the possibilities, allowing for the storage and preparation of fresh ingredients on board. Dining cars were also directly responsible for the creation of another railroading invention that we take for granted today: the closed vestibule. In the past, in order to move between cars, you would need to navigate an open platform which was exposed to the elements, and cross a constantly moving gap between the two cars. Prior to dining cars, this rarely presented a problem. But after their creation, passengers needed to walk between cars on a moving train for the first time. This uncomfortable and often dangerous practice was in need of a solution. The vestibule car was designed by Henry Sessions, a superintendent of the Chicago Pullman plant. Now a coffee shop and museum, this house in Pullman, Illinois was once the home of Henry Sessions, before later becoming the Pullman Club, denoted by the PC on the stained glass windows. The first Sessions vestibule cars were debuted in 1887, and we never looked back. This design was further improved upon into the modern wide vestibule in 1893, which is still what we use today. So the next time you're on a train and safely move from car to car, remember that you have dining cars to thank for this. As the novelty of the dining car began to wane, railroads began engaging in a game of one-upmanship in order to attract passengers. Passengers on all railroads began expecting more and more elegant surroundings as these cars became less about sustenance and more about entertainment and public relations for the railroads. And it wasn't just about what was on the plates, but the plates themselves. Custom-designed railroad china was yet another way for a train's diner service to stand out from the crowd, with the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad having some of the most distinct. Landscapes and railroading scenes in royal blue strewn across the table left no doubt that you were dining aboard the B&O. After the turn of the century, dining cars remained an important part of overnight trains. But attention turned away from making these cars ever more lavish and luxurious. An effort was made to make them as modern and efficient as possible. Dining cars slowly began to fall out of favor for a lot of the traveling public, because meals were often double or triple the price of a comparable meal in a restaurant. Trains began to consistently lose money on food service for the first time after World War I. This created a new emphasis on cost-saving measures, which still persists to this day. Some railroads began downgrading their services and replacing dining cars with vending machines, buffet cars, and pre-cooked meals, while others maintained a high level of service at a loss, so as to keep a sterling reputation and maintain good public relations. In the days leading up to the creation of Amtrak, many railroads were still attempting to keep their diner service as close to traditional as possible. But by the 1960s, it was clear that economic pressures were causing food services to be scaled back. In 1971, after Amtrak was created, the Southern Railway under the leadership of Graham Claytor was so proud of their flagship train, the Crescent, and its dining service, that they chose to continue the operation of the train at multi-million-dollar losses, even as other railroads relinquished their passenger service. Many believed the Crescent to be the finest train left in America. Back over at Amtrak, dining car offerings varied greatly across the network, especially because they were using equipment handed down from each predecessor railroad. On day one, Amtrak didn't have enough time to revamp the dining services on each railroad, so for a brief time, all trains still had the regional specialties of the train that it was replacing. But today's Amtrak dining car menus have a standardized corporate list of offerings, all provided by national suppliers, offering consistency, but very little variety or imagination. As of the creation of this episode, full dining car services are not available on every overnight train. Some eastern routes are even still using Amtrak's so-called flexible dining service. It's ironic that I'm working on this script while riding aboard the Capital Limited, which doesn't even have a dining car. It only has a single cross-country cafe, which serves these microwaved flexible meals to sleeping car passengers and only offers cafe option for coach passengers. This makes me long for the golden age of dining cars all the more. Amtrak wasn't always so remiss though. In the 1990s, they sent their chefs to the Culinary Institute of America in an effort to improve their food service. And even as Amtrak began implementing their own dining services in the early days, they tried to stay true to some of the predecessors' styles and menu options. I remember having gumbo on Amtrak City of New Orleans and Santa Fe French toast on the Southwest Chief. These small touches made each Amtrak trip a unique experience. While I doubt there will ever be a return to lobster dinner served on trains in New England and fresh-caught salmon and filet mignon on trains in the Pacific Northwest, I truly believe we could usher in a new modern era of dinner in the diner that would bring some of the romance back to overnight passenger rail. In an effort to cut costs, railways developed commissaries at the endpoints of overnight routes to try and reduce the need for chefs to prepare everything from scratch on board. This is in essence what Amtrak's flexible dining aims to accomplish. But another Amtrak service proves that this same thing can be done in a much more appealing and pleasant manner. Amtrak's Acela First Class menu consists of gourmet meals that are heated by the car attendant and served on Amtrak-branded china with metal silverware. While nothing beats a fresh-cooked meal, this food service on Acela is delicious, and the service is truly outstanding. I've often wondered why Eastern long-distance trains don't just adopt this exact same service. It's already a proven concept, and trains that would benefit from it already originate at stations with the Acela commissaries like Boston, New York, and Washington, D.C. This seems like it would be very easy to implement and would absolutely be an improvement over the microwaved dinners currently found on the Capitol and Lakeshore Limited. With Amtrak now looking to replace their current long-distance fleet, it's exciting to think what the future of dining cars might look like. With new generations of passengers and different expectations for travel, this could be the perfect opportunity to reinvent the American dining car. Sleeper trains are currently making a huge comeback in Europe. This is partially due to more climate-conscious travelers, and also due to how unpleasant air travel has become in a lot of cases. An overnight train is once again being seen as a more civilized and comfortable way to travel. One of the newest services to emerge is Scotland's Caledonian Sleeper. I was very impressed with their dining car service, and I think that a lot of these innovations would do very well here in the US. The layout of the Caledonian Sleeper Club car is quite ingenious. There is one large table that can comfortably seat a party of 6 or more, plus several tables that seat either parties of 2 or 4. But the most innovative feature has to be this sawtooth-shaped table that runs along one side of the car. This seating arrangement with swiveling chairs can accommodate pairs dining together or comfortably seat all single diners. With the aim of modern meal service being efficiency and not luxury, this might just be the perfect way of accomplishing this while also giving passengers an enjoyable experience that they will look forward to. And in the morning, you could make your way to the club car for a full breakfast. Otherwise, coffee and pastries are served directly to your room at a time of your choosing. You make your selections on a paper door hanger and place it outside your room before going to sleep. With the future of Amtrak dining car service still on the drawing board, it's exciting to think about some of these possibilities. I researched the script for this episode while riding aboard Amtrak's Capitol Limited, in part by reading this fantastic book called Dinner in the Diner by Will C. Hollister. In addition to the history you have heard today, this book contains even more information about some of the most famous railroad dining cars, plus a fantastic collection of authentic railroad recipes that you can try for the first time or use to bring back wonderful memories. I'm a big fan of the Santa Fe, and I can't wait to try out some of these recipes to get a taste of what it must have been like to ride the famous Super Chief. And speaking of the Super Chief, watch this video next to learn even more about this famous train. Please like and subscribe, and consider giving a super thanks to help support licensing historic footage used in this and other episodes. Thank you for watching Rail Weekly.